Hello and welcome to Geekscape Presents 1986. I'm Christian Bladt from Marvel Movie Talk, Geekscape Book Club, and a bunch of other stuff. Very excited to be joined by the great Zach Schaffer. How are you, Zach?
Woo! I'm honored to be on your show, Christian. It's been quite a while, and every time we get together, we always have a lot of folly involved and a lot of fun and all that good stuff.
Some would say there's hootin' and hollerin'. So
I would
we'll
agree.
see if we can deliver both of those. And we were talking before we got started. When I pitched this to you, I said, I really want to focus on 1986 because it's the 40th anniversary of 1986. And some could make the case, I might be one of them. It might be the greatest year in American history, at least pop culture wise, entertainment wise. Like myself, you're very busy. But what were your thoughts when I said, hey, you want to talk about 1986 for a whole year?
When I started considering all of the anniversaries of movies, TV shows, etc., that came out in 86, I thought, yeah, maybe 86 is one of the like dark horse best years of the 80s. Often people say like 84 or 85. I personally, 87's up there for me, but 86 is kind of a dark horse.
Yeah, 87 specifically has some just monster albums. So,
big time.
But we'll have to talk about that in 2027 because this year we're talking about 1986. That's the year I turned 10. And
Me too.
I didn't realize we were exactly the same age. I just turned 50.
I will be in a couple months. So yeah.
By the next episode, we'll both be 50. And right. And I was in fourth grade, so consuming lots of content. And content was a lot harder to come by. In fact, we didn't call it content. It was movies, TV, music, comics, all that stuff. I loved all of it. And as I was compiling this list of like, oh my God, we're basically, let me explain for everybody. I'm so excited. I didn't even explain the concept. So we're going to do this over 6 parts. Each part, we're going to talk about 2 months. We could have very easily done 12 parts where each one was 1 month. I'm trying to be a little bit respectful of Zach's schedule. And I know, I don't want mine to burst. But honestly, if we did every 3 months, I'm like, oh, then each of those episodes is going to be 3 hours long. So every 2 months seems like the way to do it. And I thought it was, it was interesting because I wanted to very specifically be like, okay, what were the top films in the box office at the start of 1986? And at the beginning of the year, no surprise, still Rocky IV. Now that's a holdover from 85, but I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on, I think, HBO or VHS. So I saw it in 1986. Yeah. And, Out of Africa is a number 1 film. Not exactly what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about. But then I forgot about a movie that was the number 1 movie for the entire month of February. Down and Out in Beverly Hills. And I was like, oh my God, I loved that movie when I was a kid. It was on HBO a lot.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first movies where I saw things that maybe I shouldn't have seen as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, that's also true. There's a few of those, actually. There's a few movies that my grandmother couldn't believe that my mom took us to see, Tootsie, among other things. But that
just happens to be my grandfather who worked on the assembly line in Detroit and was pretty hardened and was kind of like an Archie Bunker. That was his favorite movie, Tootsie, which is kind of ironic.
I mean, it's a great movie. But Down and Out in Beverly Hills, it's easy to forget. And I don't know how many times I thought of this movie when that Nick Nolte mugshot was going around. I was like, oh, he's finally arrived. Now he's at that point. But it's so crazy to be like, yeah, you put Nick Nolte top billing ahead of Bette Midler and Richard Dreyfuss, number 3. But it all makes sense, doesn't it, Zach?
It does. By the way, side note, there was a TV show based on Down and Out in Beverly Hills. I believe Tim Thomerson was the lead in that. He played the Nick Nolte role. Richard Dreyfuss, I think today's audiences don't understand that he was a huge deal in the 70s and 80s, from American Graffiti, Jaws, and up into the 80s, and Mr. Holland's Opus in the 90s. I think he was pretty big in that too. And Bette Midler is, what Lady Gaga is now. Like, she was that kind of thing back in the day, and just, a performer, really. And yeah, for Nick Nolte to have top billing, on the poster that Christian's sharing on the video, they're all in the same plane, though. There's not one above the other, but Nick Nolte's the lead.
Yeah, that there might have been some agents and managers that got involved, and I have not seen this movie in so long, and I have fond memories of it. It is a rated R movie. Neither you nor I probably should have seen it, but I sure did, and I enjoyed it.
Well, this is
I don't
the
think
decade.
I'm going to show.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't think I'm going to show my 10-year-old this. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Well, yeah, I was just literally thinking the same thing, because my son, who's now 11, is on a rated R kick. A lot of rated R movies, some that will be brought up in this episode that we've definitely watched. But it's all sci-fi action to horror, right? And Down and Out in Beverly Hills was like an adult comedy. And that is kind of a rarity now. You don't see a lot of R-rated adult comedies. I used to get this confused with Ruthless People back in the day.
Yes. Bette Midler's in both of those, unless I'm mistaken. Yes. Yeah. But this is the fun one, So
for sure.
I haven't seen it in so long, and it jogged my memory literally last night. So I'm like, well, I didn't have time to watch it, but I feel like I need to watch this again, because I want that slice of life of early 1986,
Especially living in Los Angeles, because both of us do.
Yeah.
How different LA was back in 1986 versus now, 40 years ago, and what Beverly Hills used to be, which it still kind of is.
Yeah, but I mean, you can watch Swingers, which is almost like 10 years after this. You're like, oh, it's different than that too,
Oh, so, yeah. I mean, no doubt.
Now, I obviously, I don't know if it's made to the American Film Institute, but 1986, the early part of 1986, did bring us a classic, Iron Eagle. I feel like this has to have come up on multiple shows that you're a part of, Zach.
It has, and for good and bad reasons. I, to use a wrestling term, mark out over this movie all the time. So when Johnny, aka William Zabka, used it in as a benchmark movie for him in Cobra Kai, I was like, yeah, movie for losers, single men living in one bedroom apartments. No, kidding. I'm kidding. I love this movie. Again, to bring up Tim Thomerson again, he plays the father in this film.
This was a good year for Tim Thomerson.
It was a really good. I love Tim Thomerson so much. But my only problem with this movie, other than the runtime, it's a little long, is the fact that the killer soundtrack that this film has, and it has an amazing end-to-end soundtrack. And of course, on $2 late fee, we focus on soundtracks of movies primarily. It's a lot of the songs that are in the movie are not available on the actual physical album.
Yeah.
And that really made me mad. Obviously, Queen's signature song, One Vision, is on there. The title track, Iron Eagle, is on there. But there's songs by like a woman named Rainey Hayes, who she like Old Enough to Rock and Roll. Eric Martin has a song, Eyes of the World, that's not on there. Two bangers, in my opinion. There's a James Brown song that's not on there, that's in the movie. A lot of really good ditties that didn't make it on the physical soundtrack.
This is more of a 90s thing, but you knew that a movie and its soundtrack were doing well when the follow-up more songs from I remember Forrest Gump and Trainspotting were two that did that. And
Boogie Nights,
Boogie Nights is a perfect example. Yeah, because like when you put the first one out, there's all sorts of things like, we don't want to pay for the rights for that. And then you're like, oh wait, look how much money there is. Yeah, we can pay for the, so if there was a more Iron Eagle, more songs from Iron Eagle, then we probably could have gotten James Brown on there.
I would be down for that. I will tell you, this movie was game changing for me, because it basically started the trend to where to listen to music while playing video games. And I abandoned listening to the actual soundtrack to Nintendo and Sega games when I put my headphones on and was rocking out to the Iron Eagle soundtrack and playing F-Zero or Afterburn, I think, for Sega is what it was called. And I thought I was, Doug, whatever is Jason Gedrick's character's name in this, Doug Masters, right?
Yeah, Jason Gedrick is definitely one of those guys that I don't know. You maybe expect. I don't want to sell his career short, but you expected to see more of him is the way that I think is a nice way to put that. But he
Yeah.
did. He was a working actor. I mean, he's probably still a working actor unless I've missed some news on him. But there are always those people that you're like, oh, they're going to be huge off of this. But
Well, dude, yeah, like think about it. He was in, I think before the year before this, he was in Heavenly Kid,
mhm.
starring in that remake. I believe it's a remake. And then he was in Rooftops, I think, after this, and didn't do very well. The sequel to Iron Eagle came out another year
Yes.
or so after, and his character got killed off in the beginning of the movie, which devastated me.
Yeah.
And then
Spoiler alert.
he kind of faded a little bit. Like
Yeah.
he showed up on Dexter at one point, not that long ago.
Yeah.
But
No,
anyways, yeah, it's a shame. I agree with you. He should have been more than what we got of him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of looking, and he was part of this TV miniseries on the Mafia called The Last Dawn that
Yes.
happened to come along a couple years before The Sopranos,
Right.
but it is a Mario Puzo book, so it was
Right.
big. But yeah, and I mean, obviously you get to be in decent sized projects, but the point is, there's times where you think somebody's going to become a superstar off of a movie, and Jason Gedrick, that's not necessarily the case. But if you look at another film from 1986, Rob Lowe and Patrick Swayze were already a big deal at this point.
Bro,
But
first of all, the poster that you're showing is so killer.
Yeah.
It is so badass. It's way better than the one that
this VHS box.
Yeah,
I wasn't gonna get that one. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I don't even know. Look, I've never seen this poster hanging in a movie theater, but I liked this one. For anybody that might be listening to audio, it's a black and white sketch of the three of them. Think of the Aha video for "Take on Me."
Totally.
It might as well be this. Yeah.
With a really like avoid empty space in the middle of the poster, by the way. It's like actually kind of appreciate it because now I feel like movie posters are so just like oversaturated with stuff, every single character in every Marvel movie. If you haven't seen Youngblood, like my stepdad, he's the one that raised me. He was a hockey player from like Pee-wees on up and semi-pro, and he was amazing and he loved Youngblood. And I remember seeing it. I don't think there's much nudity, but there are some questionable scenes that initiate Rob Lowe's character into the hockey team that he's a part of. So and Cynthia Gibb is so great, and you've got Keanu Reeves in it, Patrick Swayze. The soundtrack is killer. Like this will come up on $2 late fee down the road for sure.
Oh, no, I'm glad to hear that. I do believe that obviously this is an American film, but I do believe that in Canada they show it on whatever the equivalent is of public television because, sort of like a rite of passage. Like this is the life we all want to be leading is Youngblood.
Does he get shaved or something like this? Isn't there a scene where he's like getting his scrotum shaved? I feel like
I believe so because here's the thing. If there isn't, you and I are both thinking of a different movie, and then I want to know what is that?
It might be Lucas.
You know what? Wow.
Yeah, Lucas is the one problematic, I guess, but Lucas is the one where he soaks his balls in Ben Gay or something.
So many of these films end up being a little bit more problematic as time goes on. But again, Youngblood, not going to show my kids, but it's they can find it if they're so inclined. You know what I'm saying?
I will say the song "Stand in the Fire." I believe it's by Mickey Thomas of
Starship.
Right? Yeah, it is. Oh well, first of all, seek out the music video for it because it is all black and white. Scenes from Youngblood, but also Patrick Swayze running around in like a Beetlejuice outfit and looking like Beetlejuice.
Oh, nice.
It's really bizarre. Yeah. But the song's a banger.
So coming in, I didn't realize it came out this early in the year. Released at the end of February is Pretty in Pink, which it's almost like we can't talk about it because it's been talked about so much. Right. But I think I always like to point out John Cryer as a bit of you want to talk about people who you think are going to have one career but John Cryer, just from having double run of syndication of 2.5 Men, John Cryer's fine. I always liked him. I love a movie that he was in a couple of years after this called Hiding Out, where where he pretends he's in high school.
Maxwell Hauser,
exactly. And again, probably not a great movie. You know, kind
It's
of
not bad.
falls in love with a high school girl, but doesn't do anything until, you know, she's college age. They set that up at the end.
That's right. I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, you know, from the sort of, I don't know. I mean, I guess you can put your triumvirate of 80s teen comedies. But for me, this one, it's so hard to say. I was going to say this one's the most fun. They're all kind of fun. But I think that it's just so perfectly cast because I mean, you know, Molly Ringwald could do no wrong at this point. You know,
Right.
she would have if she'd had more time in the day, she probably would have done like 5 more movies between 1985 and 1987. You know, but I don't know. Oh, do you have particularly strong feelings about any particular aspect of Pretty in Pink, Zach?
I mean, I love Annie Potts in this movie. I think she's wonderful.
Yeah,
Obviously, I will shout out another John Cryer movie, Morgan Stewart's Coming Home. If y'all have never
that's
seen
another
that,
great one. Yeah,
it's
sure.
a great romantic comedy, especially for all you horror fans out there, because he's a big horror nerd in that. And I think George Romero. Well, there's a pseudo cameo of George Romero in that. It's kind of, I think Mallrats kind of made fun of it in the when that came out. Anyways, yeah, the soundtrack is iconic. The movie's iconic. I've got a friend, Always Ducky on Always Duckman on Instagram. She is a cosplayer and she cosplays Ducky to a T, like to the point where you think it's John Cryer just stepped in front of you. John Cryer was a parent at my school, and he was one of the nicest guys back in the day. So it's anyways.
I'm glad to hear that because you don't always hear that.
Nope. But he's a legit cool guy.
Yeah, and I think that you know this is I don't know. It's not quite the end of these films coming out, but I forget what year Molly Ringwald goes and does For Keeps, but that's when she's like, "Can I please just kind of, you know, branch out a little bit?" And then, you know, I mean, you always have sort of those growing pains, which is a phenomenal TV show, but we're not talking about that right now.
Yeah, not yet. But I will say, John Hughes. People forget that John Hughes, he didn't direct a lot of the movies that he like quote unquote is a part of. You know, I think he only directed like 3 or 4 of them. Pretty in Pink being one. And then Weird Science being another, which came out the year prior, I believe. Anyways, yeah, I think people often go, "Oh, John Cryer, he did all those movies in the 80s." Well, he had a hand in them, but he didn't direct all of them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. John Hughes.
Sorry, John Hughes. Hughes.
I mean, and later on in this series, we'll of course talk about Ferris. But this is, you know, this is from the John Hughes mold, but he did actually direct this one. And I think that it's, I don't know. Sometimes I worry about going back and looking at these movies, you know, like I know why to not watch 16 Candles. You know, there's a whole character that couldn't be more problematic in 16 Candles.
Yeah, you know? It's really a shame because it's really funny.
It's such a fun movie, but you know,
it's still racist.
I mean, it's you know,
it's really straight up racist.
My wife's Chinese American, so that means my kids are half. So it's like I can't ever imagine trying to be like, oh, let's explain that this is supposed to be funny back then, but it isn't now. You know, everything. It's just so loaded at this point. So,
well, you and I are in the same boat. My wife is also Chinese American, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but my wife will say that, like, you know, they watched it on TV with their family and they laughed really hard in the movie back then. So it's, you know, it's we look at things through a different lens, but as we talk about movies that we couldn't possibly imagine children watching, you probably know which one I'm going to go to next.
Oh, you're setting it up really nicely.
9.5 Weeks, which I didn't see until I was in college.
I thought you were going to say Delta Force.
No. We'll get Delta Force. That'll
maybe.
But gosh, and then Mickey Rourke, you know, it's such a career, but obviously I think what I saw before this is, I think it's the first Hot Shots or Hot Shots Part 2 where they're like cooking an egg on her stomach and, you know, doing a parody of this movie, which I guess at that point was like 6 years earlier, you know, but I mean, it's this is like one of those movies that I think the video store might have been behind the behind the counter because they didn't want basically me or any of my friends to sneak out with it. But obviously, you know, um, tremendous casting, and it's a very grown up story. And you know, the first time I did watch it, I watched it with a girl that I was interested in, and I don't know, I don't think we understood what was going on. The movie was like 10 years old at that point, but you know, it was one of those though that if you haven't seen it, like, oh, I've always heard about this. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Zach?
No, you're right. It's I think what is it, 50 Shades of Grey? People used to trip out over.
Yeah,
This movie is the equivalent of that, from the 80s.
yeah,
And this movie is stylistically, it's beautiful,
yes,
and it's got a killer soundtrack. I think story wise, it's really not that great.
no, but
And
like actual adult films, you're not necessarily there for the story, you know.
no, it is the precursor to Red Shoe Diaries, what we would
Yeah,
later call Cinemax,
yeah,
softcore, right?
yeah,
But Mickey Rourke, like, first of all, Kim Basinger was I think she's always been gorgeous, but like she's
yeah.
just so great. But Mickey Rourke, like, this is a guy, everybody, like, if you only know Mickey Rourke now for having his, the way he looks now and his
Right,
career
the
now.
wrestler, Iron Man 2, like it's a completely different guy. Yeah,
No, he was what many would consider, the Bradley Cooper of his time, or
yeah,
the I don't know, like, name another kind of hot hunky, young actor right now. He was that guy in the
yeah.
80s, and very complex. I idolized Mickey Rourke. So I had never seen 9.5 Weeks as a kid, clearly, obviously,
Yeah, I should
fortunately.
hope not, Zach.
Yeah, well, my mom loved this movie, and that's a whole other bag of worms to unravel. But but I loved Mickey Rourke. I had a calendar of Mickey Rourke on my wall. I loved him so much.
Whoa!
Yeah, different,
Wow.
like, pictures from different movies he was in. It was
All right.
really. I wish I still had it, but
Well, the next time we talk about 1986, I'm going to see if I can at least find a representation of what the images were on the Mickey Rourke calendar
he's
because
such a
I want to
hunk.
see.
Yeah, it was so good. All his hunky rolls.
So you mentioned it a moment ago. We've talked a lot about great music in films. There is no better theme than the Delta Force theme.
It's my
I mean,
ringtone.
yeah. Oh, see, I didn't even know that. I should call you right now just so we can hear it. But it's just like, oh, it's just everything. It makes you want to, jump into the screen. That song, like, I'm gonna help out. Lee Marvin needs my help. Chuck
Yeah.
Norris needs my help. But I mean, this is just a perfect 80s movie where you're like, no, you can't like look at it with like the jeweler's loop and really go through and talk about the cinema involved, the film with a capital F. But I mean, it was such a fun movie as a kid, and you're just like, oh, I feel like the good guys are going to prevail. I just had a hunch the whole time. And
Right.
you don't get a theme song like that in a movie where the bad guys win, do you?
Oh God! If y'all don't know what the theme song is, just look it up. That din 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 din.
Yeah, I
So
would
good.
play it, but I know that'll immediately get us struck. So
Yeah, do not want that happening. But
yeah,
I will
no.
say, this movie to me is like the equivalent of a Irwin Allen disaster movie from the 70s, where,
Mhm.
like Towering Inferno or Poseidon Adventure, where they brought together a whole cavalcade of iconic kind of actors, right? And obviously Chuck Norris leads the way,
Of
but
course.
he's not. It's an ensemble film. Like, he actually is not even in, like, a big chunks of it.
Yeah.
And that was smart to do that with Chuck, because look, I idolized Chuck Norris back in the day. I read his autobiography cover to cover in third grade. I swear to God. And I still have it. It's falling apart now. But the 80s Chuck Norris, I always have to clarify, 80s Chuck Norris I love, just like I love 80s Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Not now. But Chuck, he was not the greatest actor, but he was really good at just being iconic with his
Yeah.
looks. And this movie has, like, besides Lee Marvin, it's got Steve James. Steve James is just the man. He should have been, talk about an actor who should have had a bigger career. as far as like a black superhero is concerned. You know,
Yeah.
you got Lainey Kazan, who was a big deal at the time. I think Eli Wallach is in it as well. And Robert Forster, talk about problematic. He plays an Iranian terrorist, or and I think I'm got that right. Anyways, he's not Middle Eastern, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. But that being said, it's one of those disaster kind of movies where it's like, is this a made-for-TV movie? No, it's not. But there are times when you're like, I feel like I'm going to flip the channel in a minute, but then it gets right back to the action.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. There's definitely times there where it's like, all right, well, there's this many minutes where we have to hold off on spending anything in the budget, and we'll figure out a way to do it. You know?
Well, it's the Canon film. And if y'all have never seen, there's a couple documentaries out on the Golan Globus and the guys who ran Canon, and they're a trip. There's a free one online. You can go on YouTube and watch it. It just shows the history of Canon films, and y'all got to just see it to appreciate Delta Force even more.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know that Canon was like wanted to be in on a Spider-Man and or X-Men at one point, and
Spider-Man for sure.
Yeah, and it's sad when the money goes away, and you can't do those things. So, yes. Zach, we're having fun talking about all these great movies from the first part of 1986. Yeah, this is really a great time to shift gears entirely. You want to pump the brakes on the fun. We do have to talk about something that happened at the end of 1986, and here's what I decided. I'm going to show smiles on the Challenger crew.
Oh,
anybody who wants to see footage of what happened, that is readily available. So this is such a seminal moment for those of us that were kids at this time. And depending on what part of the country you grew up in, the way it happens for you might be a little different. So I grew up in New York, as I mentioned. So I think I was in art class. And we weren't watching it. You know, you see some of those heartbreaking videos of schools that are watching it, and then they see the disaster, they see the explosion. But they made an announcement in the middle of class, and they told us what happened. And we just sort of looked around like, oh, this is 1986, Zach. There's no there was like a counselor in the school, but his door wasn't open for you to talk about your feelings about this.
It was like get arrested later for doing inappropriate things.
This might be what happened, but allegedly. So, yes. So the idea that we're going to tell you this terrible news because I don't know, we don't want you to wait like 3 hours and then hear it at home. There's no way we would have found out during the school day,
right?
But and I just remember you're kind of numb from it because you knew all the excitement. Look, I had a picture of this space shuttle on my wall as a kid, much younger than this, and it was still up at this point. I loved the idea of going into space. Then I found out you had to, be athletic and good at math, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll just watch. I'll watch other people. And it's such a sad story, and you got a civilian in space, Kristen McAuliffe, the teacher. And, it's so sad. And I didn't understand why my mom was so upset about these people you didn't know, and she didn't want the news on because they just kept showing the footage over and over again. And that's probably why I'm predisposed to not, what are we going to get out of looking at that right now?
Right.
How was that day for you? I believe I should have looked it up, but I think it's January 28th, 1986.
Yeah. So coincidentally, one of my shows I have of the 4 different podcasts I do, one is called 80s Kids Unite, and we take topics from suggested by Patreon members. And one of our Patreon members has suggested the Challenger explosion, and we're going to cover that later on I believe in April on 80s Kids Unite. And so but what I will say is this, because when Christian said, oh, we're going to cover this, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, we got to talk about this.
You can't not talk about it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I was in 4th grade too, like we both said earlier. And I remember my teacher bringing in that giant cart that's, screeched, right? Yeah. And then, and it was iconic because, like you said, there was a school teacher on the plane, or on the shuttle, and shuttle launches were still a rarity at this point. You know, we hadn't seen, it was still a big event. Like
Yeah.
everybody was glued to the television. Nowadays, SpaceX is not far from both of us, and they launch shuttles all the time, and people are like, yeah, whatever, you know. So it was still a really big deal. And I remember when it happened, we were watching it live, and the explosion happened. My fourth grade teacher, who I forget her name now, but that's doesn't matter because she wasn't that great. She walked over to the TV, she turned it off, she wheeled the cart away, and we didn't even talk about it. And like we did, it's like, you know, that was typical 80s stuff. We
I was
just
going
don't
to
talk
say
about
that is the most 80s reaction to that.
Yeah. And I remember all our friends were, my friend Jason Brown, he and I were looking at each other like speechless, you know?
Yeah, like what did we just see? Yeah.
Right. And I think too, like there had been so much hype about all these people, you know, we knew about all of them in the Bay Area. I think there were some people connected to the Bay Area, at least Palo Alto, because there's like a garden or some sort of, something planted up near Stanford in dedication to the Challenger explosion. And I remember I lived in the Bay Area at the time, Cupertino, and before Cupertino became Apple Central. And it was huge. It was huge news. The first of many tragedies to take place in the 80s. And, you know, we were like, as joyful as many moments were in the 80s, there were a lot of traumatic moments, like a lot of things that hit us hard. This was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I believe on our next episode, we're going to talk about Chernobyl, the level of which I didn't understand until a few years ago with the amazing HBO series about it.
Oh, yeah, me too.
You know, because again, I'm 10 at the time. So I'm like, oh, this is really bad.
Right.
But also at the same time, it's like, oh, this is Russia. They're our enemies. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. Like this is 86. We don't talk about Russia. And if we do, it's only in a negative way.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, I mean, you know, just sort of from just interested to look back, I want to know what was like Johnny Carson like that night. What did David Letterman, they were on, you know,
Yeah.
do you address it? Do you talk seriously? Do you ignore it? I literally have no idea. And I'm only thinking of that right now. I did learn something that could have made this moment even worse. The loss of any life is tragic, but I think you might have read the thing that I sent you.
Yeah.
In a documentary about Carol Spinney, who for a long time was Big Bird. Anybody who's seen Sesame Street lately will say Carol Spinney is the Big Bird. But anyway, let's not get it down that well. And he never advanced very far. But somebody at NASA thought, like, oh, kids might be more interested in the space program if we put Big Bird on this flight. And, you know, Big Bird's not going to fit on the flight in the suit and all that.
Too big.
So they went for a civilian, and a teacher made more sense. But he said, like, oh, you know, somebody had talked to him about it. And I was just like, I can't imagine, like, it being, obviously it's so horrific. What would make it worse for kids? You know, Big Bird was on that, you know, and you're like, wait, what? You know,
talk about innocence lost.
It's hard enough. If you've ever seen the episode of Sesame Street where they have to explain to Big Bird that Mr. Hooper is dead.
Yes.
Yeah. I've watched that more recently because I was talking about it, and I was like, I feel like I should dig that up. And oh my gosh, it's like so hard. I'm getting upset thinking about it. So having to explain that. So yeah, it's such a terrible thing. And I can honestly say in my lifetime, terrible things watching in TV, that 9/11, and there nothing else compares. There's other things that are of course terrible, but you know, 9/11 you're watching in real time and you just can't believe it happened. But this is like, oh my God, we always watch the space shuttle countdown. I can't wait. Right. And then it goes up and you go like, oh my God, they're in space and we're excited and we want to know more about it. And then this is like, they told us something at school. I should put on the news and say, oh my God, look what happened, you know?
Right.
So, but look, it's a big part of being 10 in 1986, being an 80s kid. This is a huge part of your life, you know?
Oh, I think so too. I think this is really what, you know, traumatic moments for kids shape them. And I think with some of those movies you listed earlier, like Iron Eagle, Delta Force, that's a catharsis for kids to process, like, you know, getting their emotions out. You're playing with your GI Joes. And the 80s was a lot of that. There was a lot of that kind of aggression, that was, at least from a boy's perspective in 1986, that was how I processed my emotions, through getting my guys together and, shooting things and characters in my toys dying and then grieving over that.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those moments. Clearly my teacher didn't know how to handle the situation. And like you said, there weren't like readily on campus counselors for schools. There are now, for good and bad. But during the time, at that time, it was like, what was it? Red Dawn, don't cry, hold it back, let it turn to something else. That was kind of that's a trademark of the 80s.
That's what Mrs. Bad fourth grade teacher, whose name you can't remember. That was what she's like, you guys will turn this into to something better. Yeah. And
yeah, totally.
In a couple episodes, we're gonna have to talk about Space Camp, which is a great film, which unfortunately, you don't know what to do with that film in the wake of this,
Right, because it came out in 86.
It comes out in June. So, and I think it was supposed to come out a little earlier. Some would say maybe wait till 87, but
wow. Side note, Tate Donovan is a neighbor of mine.
Wow. All right.
We ride past each other all the time on our bikes. We're like,
hey Donovan, you got John Cryer at the school.
Yeah, I know. Name dropper.
Yeah, I know. I only had 90s personalities at my kids' preschool.
You're like, I have Puck at my school for real.
No, I did have I had Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis. They would drop their kids off. And sometimes like the paparazzi would be waiting across the street just to get a picture of them taking their kids out. So they started putting just a cop there just so that they could chase them away.
Wow.
Zoe Saldana also would see her, mostly the husband, but because she was always working, but we saw her a few times.
Wow. That's
fun fact. I was in a pie eating contest with Ashton Kutcher at that preschool. Neither of us won. So that's the end of that. Anyway, so we tried to bring it back up by talking about
86 Stand By Me. Speaking of pie eating contests.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's not yet though, but
we'll get to that.
Definitely get to that. Yeah. So I think that the way to talk about there were fun things on television in 1986. 1986 was amazing because we still had they hadn't gotten to the point where they were just rerunning all the GI Joes. I think if I'm right, 85, 86 is the last year with like, a full crop of new episods. Transformers was already doing that. And boy, are we going to talk about Transformers a little bit later in this series. I'm teasing everything forward. But the thing about most of primetime, you could watch it with your family, there's exceptions. So I want to mention what the top 10 basically was for the 1985-1986 season. And, you want to talk about things that unfortunately can't age well. The number one show on TV is The Cosby Show. Now, the show in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with the show.
Yes.
What Dr. Cosby was up to, after the show and in the years after the show, that's a different story entirely. Right. But tell me that you can sit and watch a Cosby Show and not think like, you could watch scenes, I guess, with the kids, and now Malcolm Jamal Warner's gone too, so the show's just painful to watch at this point,
It really is. I think, for those that don't know, Bill Cosby was quote unquote America's favorite dad in the 80s. I think the next guy you're going to talk about in the next show, that dad is now the new favorite dad of the 80s. But at the time he was, and I can't watch Leonard Part 6 or Cosby Show anymore,
or Ghost Dad. Can't watch Ghost Dad either.
No,
or
I know. Picture Pages.
That's how I knew him. I would watch Picture Pages,
too.
Which would be included. It'd be included in the Captain Kangaroo show. That's where I saw it. And
I made a noise with the pen. I always wanted that B pen that he had.
You wanted Mortimer Ichabod Marker? Is that what you wanted? Yes. I hadn't thought of his name in quite some time, but there it was. So yeah, I would get Picture Pages. I loved Picture Pages.
Dude, that show was great.
It was a great way to, it was interactive. Before you were, voting to keep Sanjaya on TV. It was a good way to be interactive.
Totally.
The number two show at this point is Family Ties, which I saw Family Ties towards the end of its first run. I saw it a lot in reruns because once it was on in the afternoons and in the mornings, you get to see You get to see Tom Hanks as drunk Uncle Ned,
Oh,
just
right.
in the middle of the night trying to find some vanilla extract because there's like 12% alcohol in it.
Right.
And shout out Bosom Buddies reruns too, by the way.
Oh,
Tom Hanks was all over daytime TV.
that's my favorite Tom Hanks, is TV Tom Hanks.
Yeah, yeah. Movie Tom Hanks is great, but I love sort of the Money Pit era. Dragnet's one of my favorite movies. I believe we talk about that this year.
So good.
But the thing about Family Ties is I do think that it's incredibly well cast. It's one of those, it's the Fonzie, it's a Steve Urkel thing. Well, this show's going to be about the parents. Oh, no, this kid's amazing. And Michael J. Fox is a superstar right away. And, there's all the stories about, I'll never see this kid's face on a lunchbox. And
Right.
Michael J. Fox signed the lunchbox and sent it to that NBC executive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, the one thing that he knew is like, oh, I'm spread really thin on this show. I can't possibly make a movie at the same time. But you get back dailies of Eric Stoltz. This is, of course, late 84 into 85. And like, what do we got to do to get him on TV 22 episodes a season and then also stay up all night and work weekends to make a movie?
Right.
I can't imagine Back to the Future without him. I specifically can't imagine it with Eric Stoltz. That's a 1985 movie. The sequels are not until 1989 and 1990.
Right.
But as we talk about Michael J. Fox at this point, he's still on the show for a few more years, but he'd already become a movie star. I can't imagine that from, just a modern standpoint,
Yeah, this went from a ensemble show to a Michael J. Fox show. All eyes were on him at that point, and obviously they had to cater the show around that. But he was supported with amazing castmates.
Even supporting cast like Skippy and Mallory's boyfriend Nick, who got a spinoff for like a minute called The Art of Nick.
Right. Scott Valentine, I interviewed him way back when, and we talked a little bit about playing Nick. Really, really nice guy, seems like it, and genuine. But like Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter coincidentally share the exact same birthday and birth year, which I talked to Michael Gross about that earlier this year. I interviewed him in regards to Tremors specifically, but he talked a lot about, Family Ties. He's become the new number one dad. Like that show is to me is very special because especially in 2026, when we have so many differing like opinions, it's either you like this or you like that, and there's no middle ground. That show was all about middle ground. Michael Keaton was a Republican and his dad was super liberal, so it's like but they found the common ground together, and they dealt with some really tough storylines, and Skippy was awesome. And I think that show actually has stayed the test of time more than say the Cosby Show.
Yeah, I think that there's external factors when it comes to Cosby,
right.
But I mean, to debut in Reagan's America, where you have all these hippies like the Keatons, like the parents, and then they have a kid who stands to reason. I think he has a picture of Pat Nixon in his locker, I believe. Just all great jokes, but it's such a rich character and the dynamic. And look, I don't want to get up on a soapbox, but we could probably learn something that they did all love each other, even though they had wildly different views on the world, especially as the show went along.
Agreed.
But it's such a great show, and I think it gets forgotten. But when we talk about theme songs, and Sidhu Busit, I mean, it's the beginning and end of that show is perfect. We'll go through a couple. The top 10 from this season includes Murder, She Wrote, which I don't know. I mean, Jessica Fletcher has all these nieces and nephews. She comes to town, somebody dies. I think if Aunt Jessica comes to town at a certain point, you're like, could you go home? Bad things happen when you're around. And this show was on for like 10 years, and they did some movies after, TV movies. But I mean, it was such like a fun, simple, yes, sit down with my grandparents and watch this show kind of show,
It was you just hit the nail on the head. I only watched it when I was with my
Yeah.
grandfather. But my co-host on $2 Late Fee, Dustin, swears by this show. He watches it to this day. He'll oftentimes send me screenshots of like an actor that we've had on $2 Late Fee that, see, they were on Murder, She Wrote too.
Oh, I love
It was
that.
either that or Miami Vice. They were either on one or the other show. And I was not the biggest Murder, She Wrote fan as a kid, but now as an adult, almost 50, I appreciate it so much more.
Yeah. Well, and now you come across it. It is like watching like old Columbos because like, look who's in this episode.
Yeah,
There's
look.
a lot of that. Yeah. And Angela Lansbury, an international treasure. I mean, I love Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, which I think Walt didn't even want that movie to come out. It was just in case they weren't able to make Mary Poppins. They're like, well, let's do a ripoff of it. But then Walt dies, and they're like, well, we've spent a lot of time on Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. Let's just. But I loved it as a kid, So 60 Minutes, you don't need to really say much about it. When I heard that clock tick, 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 I went in my room and played or read comics or something.
It's when that news mattered though. Like it's not what it is now.
No, but I definitely, but at 10, I'm like, oh, this is about to be boring.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to go back to my toys.
Yeah. And Cheers is the number 5 show at this point for a show that almost got canceled. You have stories like that and Seinfeld, shows that, stumble a little bit out of the gate. And it's so iconic and just an unbelievable cast. You have this great character in the early run, Coach, and Nicholas not Costello, because that's a mobster, but that actor who played him, whose name is similar to that, he passed away, and then they replaced him with Woody Harrelson, and you're like, oh yeah, this is you don't miss a beat,
No,
Shelley Long leaves to go do movies, and then believe it or not, the great Kirstie Alley. I love Kirstie Alley in Star Trek 2. I love her in Cheers, and she tremendous show that I think is one of those ones that is able to be fully appreciated even now. Yes, there's references, there's situations that are dated, but the show itself, it's like Taxi. I mean, it's one of those. It transcends the time that it's in, and you can still watch it and enjoy it. I didn't stay up late enough to watch Dallas or Dynasty. My parents weren't even that into those, but that's 6 and 7. But number 8, the Golden Girls. Ooh, I love me some Golden Girls. Those ladies were funny. And you
got so excited.
You look at and like if you look at it now, like Blanche with all of her racy talk, she's probably in her like 50s. So Rue McClanahan, I might have to give it a new pair of eyes, and of course Estelle Getty being the youngest of all of them, but she plays B. Arthur's mother. It is more of like, we just talked about Cheers a second ago. Golden Girls is a little bit more of the jokey kind of like jokes stacked on top of jokes, stacked on top of jokes. But especially when you're a kid, you're just like, oh, this is funny. These grown-ups are talking the way kids talk to each other,
Yeah, this is like a show that as a kid you go, I'm not watching that. And then you sit in front of the TV and you're like, oh, I actually kind of like this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And that version of Thank You for Being a Friend is the only one I ever think of at this point.
Well, you mentioned Cheers also having an iconic theme song. Like all these shows have iconic theme songs. Side note about Cheers, by the way, Craig Saffin, who is a movie composer, he did Last Starfighter and Remo Williams. He did the incidental music in between the commercial breaks and everything.
Oh wow! So now that I didn't know. Yeah, and that's the problem when a show goes into syndication and it has a great theme song. It goes right to sometimes you want to go. No. I want the beginning part. I want the quiet part. I want to build up to it. And they're like, no. We got to stick a couple more commercials in here.
Yeah, and you're talking about when something goes into syndication. The next show you're going to talk about, as far as like iconic music. Yeah. Like if it didn't have that, I think Universal Mill Creek put out a box set of this show you're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah.
And I don't think it had all the music in it. They lost the rights, but the Universal one did.
That's the toughest thing about, reissuing these shows. And, there's different rights deals for different things. There's a show I love from the early 2000s called Ed with Tom Cavanaugh. It's not
Yeah.
anywhere because it had so much music. His Foo Fighters is the theme song,
All
you know?
right.
So it's just like they can't figure it out. And, you know, the Wonder Years didn't come out
Right.
for such a long time because there's so many music cues. And I saw an interview once where somebody talked about like, so in the original episode, it had this Bob Dylan song and we just couldn't get it. But then we were able to get this live version of him doing it. And then they snuck that in there and it'll have the same weight of it. But yeah, not having the music, especially when you're really familiar with something, you know, and
Yeah,
then
it's
you
really a
see it.
shame.
And it happens with movies sometimes. We talked about 16 Candles earlier. When that movie's on TV, I think you might not have any David Bowie songs. I could be wrong, but that might not be what it is. But there's something that's missing, and you're like, oh no, and it sounded like music. It's not
Yeah.
like a different pop song from the era, and you're like, oh, who thought this was a good
It
idea?
really takes you out of it. Wrestling
Yeah.
does that now too, because WWE did not buy the rights to all these songs that people used to come out to. So now they
Right.
just come out to generic stuff, and you're like, no, but I want to hear that song or whatever.
Yeah, I can't tell if this guy's a real American or not. I don't know because I don't hear
Spoiler, he's not.
it. Well,
Wow.
no longer with us.
Yeah.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Terry. But yeah, I mean, look, it's an old story how Miami Vice happens. You know, Brandon Tartikoff, you know, writes MTV Cops and passes that along, and that is literally what the show is. And I am saying that as someone who loves the 80s and celebrates the 80s. That is not a knock on Miami Vice.
No,
This isn't the MTV Cops show, and it's amazing. And
it is.
you know, Don Johnson, he wasn't nobody, but you know, after this, you know, he's somebody. He's not just Nash Bridges, you know. I mean,
oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, this show, first of all, it inspired a lot of knockoffs that are actually pretty decent. There was a show called The Insiders that ABC put out.
Yeah, I remember
with,
that. Yeah.
Stoney Jackson was one of the leads in that show. Basically, Miami Vice, but they were like reporters. And Nasty Boys, which is another NBC show, which was basically Miami Vice in Las Vegas. And Dennis Franz was the police chief of that group. Anyways, but this show, like Don Johnson, iconic, love it. But again, like Murder, She Wrote, an ensemble of guest appearances from, you know, Lou Diamond Phillips to
Frank Zappa.
Right, yeah, Phil Collins.
Phil Collins was the next one I was going to say. Yeah, exactly.
So many. And the music is, like, don't get me started. Like, I have a whole playlist of just Miami Vice music they would put on the show,
and the theme song, you know, that guy's name is Jan Hammer. Is that what his name is? Yeah. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that theme song charted, that instrumental, you know, that
it did
that, and like Axel F, you know, I don't think it's a top 10, but you know, it was on Billboard's like Hot 100 because people would buy it and want to hear it, you know?
Oh yeah. Like that you mentioned earlier, like having more of CD, they put out a Miami Vice soundtrack, and then they put out Miami Vice 2 soundtrack, which of course I have both on vinyl and cassette because I'm addicted to this show. This show is like fueled my fantasies of what like it meant to be a cop and how cool that was. And people often knock how it got, like, it started wear out towards the end of of its run. But man, when it was on fire, it was on fire. And just like, talk about music and image together. Michael Mann has a huge, for me, my favorite Michael Mann movie came out in '86, and we'll get to that down the road. But it pairs nicely with Miami Vice because it's like nice counterpiece. But Miami Vice was iconic. Colors, style, everything.
Yeah, and obviously it created the fashion, the idea that, well, what if I throw a sport coat over my pink t-shirt? Wow, that's a pretty solid look. Oh, slip-on shoes with no laces, and done, you know? And, you know, which is great because when my wife turned, I think it was for her 30th birthday, she had like an 80s theme prom.
Okay.
And so I knew exactly what I was going to wear, and I just described it. I had the white sport coat with a pink t-shirt, the slip-on shoes, completely white suit. I would have worn that for her wedding, but you know, I think she wanted it to be a little bit more traditional. But
I would have totally supported that. I will say, for my 50th this year, we are doing a Miami Vice themed birthday party. So I will be wearing, I'll be Don Johnson.
for that. I mean, that's amazing. And the problem with the playlist for that party is well, the party's either going to be 8 hours or you're going to have to whittle it down a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, and look, I don't know. I mean, look, TV was TV back then. You would be like, you'd have to pretend you saw Miami Vice if maybe your parents made you go to bed before it was on, but everybody would talk about what was on TV the night before because we had a VCR. So yes, I could record shows, but you could still miss it. You know what I mean? And you didn't want to miss those moments. And this is when TV was filled with those moments.
I think it was on either Friday nights or Saturday nights as well. So you could talk about it the following Monday at school if you saw it and reenact a scene or whatever.
That's right. So rounding out the top 10 is another great TV dad, Who's the Boss, which again was one of those ones I would watch first run episodes, but the daytime reruns were on as well. A great TV dad who moves out of the city so that Samantha could have the brand new life that they mentioned in the theme song. And, some people would ask, well, who's the boss? Is it Tony? Is it Angela? No. Everyone knew the boss was Mona Catherine Hellman. Everyone knew who the boss was on that show. And, I knew her from reruns of Soap that was so over my head that my parents would let me stay in the room for reruns of Soap. I wouldn't have been, I didn't know until I was much older that, Billy Crystal's character was gay. Huh. Okay. I didn't know what that was when I would see so, but she's tremendous and the casting is perfect. And I don't know, like a lot of men of a certain age, we all probably fell in love with Alyssa Milano at some point in our life, because she was the girl on TV that you're like, oh, maybe she would talk to me if I talked to her.
We were 10 years old. So of course, we're going through puberty within the next couple of years. Of course, that was going to be a thing.
But, it's such
Judith Light was hot too.
Still is.
Yes.
And the thing about the show, it's like, it's such a goofy concept. It's not as bad as My Mother the Car, that's like all time, like stupid concepts, but it's like, okay, it's a male housekeeper. All right. And it took them a long time for those two to get together though. You know what I mean?
Sure did. It tracks in LA, by the way, male housekeeper.
Yeah, but that's probably true. But he would have, it's almost like they would have done with Three's Company, where like he, or even Bosom Buddies, he'd have to like cross dress or pretend that he was gay or something, but it all worked out. And, everybody was friends there, but it's a fun show. But I can't tell you that at any point, I'm 50 now. If I live another 50 years, I may never watch an episode of Who's the Boss again.
I know. I feel like it's a little unforgettable out of all the shows you listed off. Probably I would put it above Dallas and Dynasty because I didn't watch those shows. But it was kind of forgettable at times. But man, Tony Danza, like I wanted to be him, like fit wise, because he was such a in shape dude. And he's always seemed like, and he always seemed like such a likable guy. I heard he is like that in real life too. And I don't know, it's just one of those fun kind of mindless shows. It's really interesting to look at the way CBS, what they put out, what NBC and ABC put out, content wise. And NBC was always a little edgier, right? And ABC always felt like they were kind of following the footsteps, like trying to do something close to that. And then CBS was like, we're going to cater to old folks.
Well, from the top 10 that we just mentioned, there's only 2 CBS shows, Murder, She Wrote and 60 Minutes. And, and I mean, 60 Minutes, how much of that has to do with, the NFL running over and then it's TV still on.
Right. That's right.
And, we'll dabble in talking about sports a little bit in this show, especially when we get to October and we talk about the World Series champion New York Mets, but we're not there yet. But the 1986 Super Bowl, so Super Bowl 20, this is the one the Chicago Bears won. And that's the one with the Super Bowl shuffle, which there were many videos like that after that, but where everybody's badly singing / rapping. I mean, it's terrible, but you kind of wanted to see it, like if it was on TV. And, that's just like taking it to a new level. And that made it where it was like, my family, we used to always go out to the movies and have dinner out at a restaurant during the Super Bowl. But I was like, I kind of want to see the Super Bowl shuffle. That's the way you would think of the Chicago Bears. So that is the sort of the one. I believe CBS had the Super Bowl that year. So that was like they had the biggest show of the year, but it's a Super Bowl with the built-in audience. I don't know if you have any fond memories of any of those. Then the athletes doing bad rap videos went on for kind of a while.
They did. I think this was the beginning of that,
Yeah,
though.
it's the first one I know of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think WWF ripped this off pretty blatantly later on in the year, but you've got with that Bears team, you've got the Fridge, and you've got Walter Payton, one of the greatest running backs of all time. You've got Jim McMahon, who prior to what we celebrity eyes is sports icons, he was one of the first like rock star kind of sport icons. I mean, I thought he was the coolest. He wasn't the greatest quarterback, but he looked cool, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I had his poster on my wall. Those old school, like they would dress them up as like movie characters, right? So I had Kirk Gibson from the Detroit Tigers, because I'm from Detroit originally, and he would, he had like a gameskeeper outfit on, or the Boz, Wizard of Boz, Brian Bosworth. But I had a Jim McMahon one as well. He looked like a Terminator.
I remember that. I remember that look for the Boz. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I had a starting lineup Jim McMahon figure. It was my favorite figure. It was so cool.
We're a couple years too early, but Bo Jackson, Bo knows the fact that he was the two sport guy, and unlike Deion Sanders, he was good at both of them. So people tried to be Bo Jackson, but I mean that was like it transcended sports. You know what I mean?
It
did. So you have some examples from this time, but obviously that's a big TV show, the Super Bowl.
Oh, I watched it.
Yeah, of course. I believe that was the first one that I was like, no, I think we got to stay home and watch this. And I think my mom was really annoyed, actually. So we should talk a little bit about music. I think that, we're looking kind of at the beginning of the year, and the Billboard #1 songs throughout January and February of 1986, Say You, Say Me by Lionel Richie, which I think this is the year Lionel Richie hosts the Grammys and then wins a bunch of Grammys, and I was just like, oh, is that how that works? And that might have been the year before, but
it might have been. I think it was, because that was the same year as Live Aid.
That is 85.
We Are the World, I believe so. But Say You, Say Me, I believe, was from the White Knights soundtrack with Mikhail Baryshnikov and Gregory Hines, which is a really great movie, by the way. It also had a Phil Collins song on there called Separate Lives, but I think Say You, Say Me plays at the end credits of that film. And what a great song. It's really a great song.
I'm ashamed to admit I've never seen that song, but I love Gregory Hines and Running Scared, him and Billy Crystal. That movie I loved.
If you love that, then I think you'll like White Knights, and you probably will like Tap, where he's a tap dancer.
Yeah.
That one's really good too.
So as these months go, so for a lot of January, February, the #1 song is That's What Friends Are For. Dionne Warwick and Friends. I don't want anybody to be end friends, but I guess just tell me who it is, which it's funny because in the 90s it would be, this guy featuring that one and this one and introducing, so like the title of the song would actually be that long. Who are the friends? I always hated that song. I was like,
it is played at like every bar mitzvah, birthday, and wedding, probably funeral too, and like.
Yeah, I am gonna. But now that we talk about it, I'm like, maybe I'll add it to my go-to karaoke.
It's just with that like generic kind of wah 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 wah, like that keyboard sound. I just was not a fan.
Yeah, there's 80s that we love, and then there's some things that are so synonymous with the 80s, and they should stay in the 80s. But don't worry, Dionne Warwick and her friends get knocked off by an absolute banger, an all-timer. How Will I Know by Whitney Houston. When you think of the end of Whitney Houston, it's so sad. But the beginning of Whitney Houston, just the coming up, the videos, she seems so happy, which that's probably where we know that, there's probably more going on behind the scenes. But it's such a great pop song. I mean, I think Will I Know, we could talk about other Whitney Houston songs as the year goes along, but it's perfect. You
I
know,
I think this is the one that was written by Boy Meets Girl, the people who did Waiting for a Star to Fall.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, let me check that out. But
I
I know
believe
that song "Waiting for a Star to Fall." I think that's like more like 88, 89.
I
But yeah,
believe they wrote this song though for Whitney and the same people. And Waiting for a Star to Fall, I believe they gave that to Whitney as well, and she passed on it, which is what they ended up releasing it themselves. But I'm pretty sure they wrote How Will I Know.
yeah. So they actually wrote it for Janet Jackson, and she passed on it.
Wow.
According to Wikipedia, which you can always take that in there. But
No, I
yes,
think it's accurate
um,
in
so
this case.
George Merrill and Shannon Rubicam, that's Boy
Yes.
Meets Girl,
Yes.
and yes, and the song's producer Narada Michael Walden also credited as co-writer. But you're absolutely correct, Boy Meets Girl, and there are plenty of those stories where a song was written for someone else, they say no, they give it to someone else. And the more fun version of that is when producer is like, "Oh, you don't like the song? Well, I guess I'll sing it." And then they have a Pharrell is a perfect example of somebody who's
Oh,
like,
totally.
he's like, "Oh, I got all these great songs. Well, I guess I'm singing them." you know?
Right. But
But
that song is huge. That song is
yeah,
iconic. How will I know?
yeah, no, it absolutely is. And I couldn't bring myself to see the Whitney Houston biopic. I liked the trailer, but I know where that story goes, and
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. Now, if you, it's weird because if it was like a documentary miniseries, I'd probably want to watch it, but maybe skip the last part. It's too sad. You know what I mean? It's,
Watch the
it's,
beginning.
it's like when Bobby Brown gets involved, you're like, oh no, this isn't going to go well. But, um, that is a quintessential 80s song, phenomenal 80s song.
Agreed.
This part of 1986 saw the release of one of the, I'll go so far as to say, perfect 1980s albums, A Different Light by the Bangles, featuring both Walk Like an Egyptian, which was really just about the video, like badly animated, Muammar Gaddafi, like with the army at
Right.
the end. But Manic
Right.
Monday, talk about songs written by other people, written by Prince. And I didn't know that for years, but then as soon as you hear
Same.
it, you hear him singing in your head, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's a Prince song." Yeah, obviously, yeah. But I loved the Bangles, and talk about crushes from the '80s, Susanna Hoffs, and within the last decade, I saw her at a party. Time has been so kind to that woman. She might as well have just walked out of maybe the Eternal Flame video a few years
Nah.
after this. But still, you're just like, oh my gosh, and I mean, this is very MTV centered music, I would say,
Oh,
because it's a girl group
big
with
time.
great videos, but these are great songs. I think that some bands can get by with a song or two where just it's the video, but it's like, Peter Gabriel isn't just wacky videos. You know what I mean? He had
Right.
some of the wackiest videos, but, and I don't know. I mean, I think that if I look at the track listing, I think there's more than just these two singles on there, but these are the big ones.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, it was either this year or the following. She was in a movie called The All Nighter.
Yeah.
And kind of trying to break out into like stardom as far as being a screen actor, but they were so talented, the entire band, much like the Go-Go's, and I think you think of like iconic all-female bands, the Bangles is definitely up there.
I mean, I'd have to look at the sales charts, but I think they were much more successful than the Go-Go's for a longer period of time because
Probably.
Belinda Carlisle got a little too itchy, and I think that's for '87. Belinda
Yeah.
Carlisle talk, but "Walking Down Your Street" is on this album. That is also a single, not iconic like these two, but it was a huge song. Another album filled with singles that came out in the beginning of 1986 is Janet Jackson's "Control." So that has "Control," Nasty Boys. What have you done for me lately? Which, I feel like I've probably been asked that a lot of times in my life. And thanks to Miss Janet, it's kind of popularized that in the lexicon, And, it was just like, that Jackson family, you had the Jackson 5, and Janet's like, no, it's all right. I got it. It's okay. I'll do my thing. And, just iconic. Everybody except LaToya really had at least some moment.
Yeah, Jermaine's sitting back going, why don't you write a song with me, please? Whatever, because he had that one hit. Look, her and her brother were like the dynamic duo of the 80s. So, and she still tours to this day. I think she's like has a residency in Vegas or something like that, which is wild.
Yeah, she didn't for a little while, and then I think it's in 1990. She's like, you know what? For fun, I'm going to do a rock song. She had that song Black Cat.
Yeah, that was cool.
So yeah, and usually Madonna was the one that was always defying genres and all that, but that is of course an all-timer. The Control album and the many singles on it, a completely different kind of music, but one that just a little bit later from when we're recording this, I'm not on a podcast called 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. It is hosted by Brian Slagle, who is the CEO of Metal Blade Records. Ozzy Osbourne's Ultimate Sin album comes out in the beginning of 1986. It has the song Shot in the Dark, which I remember the video for it. And that's how I think I probably saw Ozzy for the first time, and it's the beauty of the 80s is that top 40 was such a mix where you could have the Bangles and Prince and Janet Jackson, and then we're going to play an Ozzy Osbourne song. Wait, what? MTV in this era, it's like, it's so perfect because it's like, whatever you like. You like Run DMC? Okay. Well, don't worry. We're going to have, Dio right after that.
So. Yeah, it was a different era. I mean, I know Billy Corgan said something recently about like when rock kind of died, but in 1986, rock was on the same level as R&B, if not bigger. And I love this album. It's probably my favorite Ozzy Osbourne album. Jake E. Lee is the guitarist. Yeah. I think a lot of times people say like, "Oh, Randy Rhoads." I think he was the big guitarist for Ozzy for a while. But Jake E. Lee, like, he had a very signature sound, especially in that Shot in the Dark. A Secret Loser is another really good song on that album. I love that album.
Well, and that's kind of a testament to Zakk Wylde, who had played with Ozzy so much lately. He's got his own style, but then it's also like, okay, you got to play these Randy Rhoads songs, you got to play these Jake E. Lee songs, you got to play these Black Sabbath songs, and he just nails all of it. He's a great guy, and he's out there in what he calls Pantera Celebration right now, and also has Zach Sabbath, where he just does Sabbath songs. So I think we'll definitely talk a little bit more metal as the year goes along. Metal being a little bit of a loose term, but I know in 1986, Alice Cooper puts out an amazing album called Constrictor that features songs from Friday the 13th, Part 6.
Yes,
he's back, the man behind the mask, but that's much later in the year. These two releases that I just want to mention from the beginning of 1986 is just very personal. They were a blip in the moment. One of them nobody even noticed. But two of my favorite bands in the 90s actually toured together with Spin Doctors, Soul Asylum and Screaming Trees. So Soul Asylum has an album called Made to Be Broken that came out. It's not their first album, but they put out many albums before their breakthrough, Grave Dancers Union. This is still a very loud, fast. Actually, the band was originally called Loud Fast Rules. It's a very loud punk record. They slowed some of these songs down later, but the song Made to Be Broken and Never Really Been, they have like these great songs. Scream Trees put out this debut called Clairvoyance. It's weird, but I was surprised. I'm like, oh, that was 86. They have a song on the single soundtrack called Nearly Lost You. That was their only real like big hit. They had a couple of hits from that album, Sweet Oblivion, but the Alternative Nation tour in 1993, Zach, I went to 2 dates on it, and neither one was close to my house. So
wow, I'm blown away that both these bands were around in the early 80s.
Oh yeah, Soul Asylum's first album comes out in 1984. Yeah,
wow,
I think it was an EP,
crazy.
but still, yeah.
That's so
wild. And again, we're talking about just all the different sounds of the 80s, and as we go through this series, we're going to talk a lot about that. And the final thing we're going to talk about in this episode, it's going to be a quick blip. There are some major events where we'll have to talk about comic books in 1986.
Yeah.
Coming out in February of 1986 is what I consider to be the greatest single standalone issue of any X-Men story. It's really a Wolverine story. It's been my backdrop for the entire episode. This is Uncanny X-Men number 205, and it's written by Chris Claremont, who wrote the series for 17 years. And the artist on this issue is Barry Windsor Smith. It is the self-contained story where Wolverine has amnesia. He's wandering around in the snow. A young girl superhero from a team called Power Pack named Katie Power tries to help him because she's met him before, and he's speaking Japanese because it's all messed up. You got Lady Deathstrike in it. It is 22 pages and it's done. It's not a holdover from the previous month. It doesn't go into the next month. It is a great standalone issue. And people will sometimes ask me like, oh, where should I start? I'm like, you go ahead and read Uncanny X-Men 205. If you're not interested in that, then you probably aren't going to enjoy, the comic book version of Wolverine in particular, but the X-Men in general.
Wow. Okay. So were comic books still was X-Men being released weekly or monthly?
No, this was only monthly. And within a few years, they would come out bi-weekly in the summer because the thinking was kids had summer jobs, so they had a little bit more money.
Yeah.
They could buy Spider-Man came out a couple of times, and I think there was another one. But those two, Amazing Spider-Man and Uncanny X-Men, both started coming out every 2 weeks. And it was infuriating because, I did have a job, and maybe comic books did only cost 75 cents. But, that's an extra $6 for the whole summer, Zach. I could have spent that on a movie ticket.
Right. Yeah. You could have gone and seen, well, we'll get to the summertime.
I could have, but I could have gone to see Youngblood.
Yeah, there you go. But I never read that comic, that issue. The cover is really radical. If y'all are just listening to this, go check out the YouTube version of it. It's so cool. Again, this is an iconic time for comic books. It's my favorite era for comics. It's when I truly could read what was in the comic and go into that world while I'm reading it, and the visuals are just amazing, along with the spectacular writing.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a reason why, X-Men was this number one property in all of comic books. It's why everybody was clamoring to make it into a movie. And it took a long time to make it into an animated series. And Barry Windsor Smith is a very unique style. He would do some of these like major standalone stories, like a couple years earlier, Storm's dealing with having lost her powers in a story called Life Death, where she's falling in love with this man named Forge, who it turns out developed the technology that led to her losing her powers. So I was like 8 when I read that, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but it's beautiful. You can see it. Apparently Barry Windsor Smith is a dick, but his art is amazing. So, but in any case, I highly recommend this, not just to you, Zach, but to everybody out there. You don't need to have read the 204 issues beforehand. You don't need to read what probably adds up to like 1,000 issues since. But in this one moment, they managed to tell the perfect story. And I cannot sing its praises enough. That's why I made sure in this episode I had to talk about one comic book, but boy, there's so much big stuff happened in 1986 in Marvel Comics alone. We talk about DC too, but I've got 2 panels that I'm trying to do at various cons, both celebrating 40th anniversaries of major events that happened in comic books in 1986.
Oh, wow, cool. Piggybacks on me trying to celebrate iconic 40th anniversary movies, but
yeah, no, exactly. And, I think one of those things that you'll have to sprinkle in, because it's not my area of expertise. I know that there's some great wrestling storylines that will have to be given their due as we go along here,
For sure. Yeah. I believe, second episode, we'll get a little bit more into that, but I believe There's some WrestleMania moments, Rock and Wrestling, et cetera, et cetera. I think Rock and Wrestling connection started in 1986 with Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou Albano.
Yeah, and there was the animated series, which my brother liked wrestling, so I would see the animated series. That let's just say this: it was as good as the Dukes of Hazzard animated series. I think that's.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, I think it's a fine thing to say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but in any case, so this has been so much fun.
Totally.
I knew that you were the person I wanted to stroll through 1986 with. And we'll do it again in a couple of months. And you can reach out to me on social media, Christian DMZ. Any thoughts, anything we missed, we'll be happy to admit that, we crammed a lot into less than 90 minutes, but we couldn't cover it all, Zach.
Well, we packed in a lot. I will say on $2 late fee, I always kind of end the episode with some fun facts from the year the movie came out, but the month that I released the episode, like one or two, and that takes up a little bit of time. So we really got a lot in this short amount of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, being worried about showing clips and getting strikes from YouTube makes it a lot easier to do the show and just kind of plow through it,
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. There's so much great music we could have played in this episode, Zach, but
at least you heard the theme song in your head somewhere.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We'll put together a Spotify playlist.
There you go. I like that idea.
Let everybody know all the places that you can be found.
Woo! Well, $2 late fee on YouTube, Spotify, et cetera, TWO. And of course, 80s Kids Unite and Podcasting After Dark. And last but not least, Territory Marks, the wrestling show I do with Paul London. So those are the 4 podcasts I do. And you can find my personal page, do a lot of fun little things on Instagram, whatnot, at Zach Schaffer. So yeah, find me, connect with me, let me know what you like, what you didn't like. I love doing this with you, man. It was an honor to be on the show. I can't wait to do more.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And until I guess early May, the next time you see us, you can also find me here on the Geekscape Network. You can find me Marvel Movie Talk, Geekscape Book Club, Geekscape News, which is a daily feacher. And I have my personal podcast, the Blattcast, BLADTCAST.
Right.
Been doing that for 13 years now.
Wow.
And I have a show called Who Are These Broadcasters, which is on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. It also exists as a podcast. And wait, Zach, in case my plugs weren't long enough, I'm one of 3 co-hosts on a movie talk 1-hour weekend radio show on the radio called Is It Worth Watching?
Wow.
With, myself, Eric Nagel, who people know from Opie and Anthony and his own show, and also our friend Lucy, who has a page called Once Over with Kaylee. She's part of the Who Are These Podcasts universe. So
awesome.
They try to tell me that radio's dead, and maybe it will be. Maybe I'll be the one to put the stake in it. But to get a show on radio in 2026 is something I'm incredibly proud of, and I love doing that show. So people can follow me, then you can find that. You can find everything, and we'll be sure to let you know when you'll get part 2 of 1986.
Coming soon.
Yeah, I don't have a good sign off. I don't know what a great 1986 sign off is. It was 1988. I could say something like Alf, but I don't think we had Alf. I don't think we had Alf yet, did we?
We didn't have Alf yet, but I think The Wildlife came out in 85 or 86. They tried to coin the phrase "it's casual," so you can say "keep it casual."
Yeah, that's
perfect. On the flip side.
Yeah, we will catch you on the flip side, and until then, keep it casual, everybody.